Hello, my name is John for Through the Eyes of George. Today I'd like to talk to you about George Washington's family and what does that mean for us today. George Washington never had children of his own, most likely due to the fact that he was sterile because of all the medical ailments he had throughout his life. Now, the children that he raised as his own at Mount Vernon were from Martha Washington, his wife, and her first husband, Daniel Parke Custis. Daniel passed away at the age of 45. Now, while raising these children as his own, George Washington expounded on them many things. How involved was he in his stepchildren's lives? Very involved, just as children should be involved today. Now, what would George Washington say about social work or artificial insemination, adoption, foster care? Now, like I said, he never had children of his own, but I'm sure there would be a level of appreciation and gratitude towards the people who are doctors or administrators at adoption homes, foster care homes, social workers, or people and doctors, nurses who provide artificial insemination for people who can't have children, like how George Washington couldn't. To the degree of what kind of medical and qualifications for all of these things, I'm not sure what George Washington would say, but the only thing we can say is that he would be thankful and have gratitude and thankfulness for these people who do a good service to help the children in our society and in our communities. Now, what would George Washington, he grew up in a home, in a single parent home for a little bit, and he also, you could say, a fatherless home. Augustus Washington passed away when George was a very young boy. He did have other people in his house, in his home or family that were around. For instance, his stepbrother or half-brother, Lawerence, was a great example of a strong, brave man who did whatever he needed to do for whatever career he wanted to do. I'm not going to get into much about Lawerence, but basically what I'm saying is that George looked up to Lawerence in whatever Lawerence was doing. So, what would George Washington think about fatherless homes, single-parent homes? Well, George Washington, I know for certain, would say thank you to the people that bust their butt, have a few jobs, or do whatever they need to do for their children in a single-parent home. I'm sure George would, if he were alive today, would urge the states under the 9th and the 10th Amendment to the state governors to do what they can to provide in some kind of way relief for single-parent homes, and there might be some kind of qualification for that. I'm not really sure because obviously George Washington isn't alive today. But at least he would be thankful and have much gratitude to parents who do raise a household under a single-parent income and single-parent home. But with fatherless homes, and the father is still around, what would George Washington say about that? I don't know. But there's one thing is that we as a society, George Washington would ask questions about why sometimes these things happen. And not about people's opinion, but really what the issue is. And to talk about the awkwardness of whatever it is. But another thing to think about is how do we educate our children and our families and protect our families? It is your sole job as a parent. I'm not a parent. I'm not married. Excuse me. It is your sole job to educate and protect your family, your children. You could possibly rely on the federal government, but the federal government is not always going to be there for your children. You are. So how are you going to educate your kids and your family about whatever topic it is? For instance, how are we going to educate our children about what a family is and what sex is? In today's culture, the boundaries of sex and the boundaries of what a family is continually get pushed and widened. I don't know what George Washington would say about the expansion of what people think about gender identity or the LGBTQIA belief in terms of how people should and or could have sex in different kinds of ways with one another. George Washington possibly would be puzzled and unsure of that without looking at and talking to other people about that situation. Beyond that, I don't really know. Also, George Washington, in terms of what a family is, he would say that it is unconstitutional for the federal government to mandate what a family is. Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama were all wrong, and it was very unconstitutional to tell people what a family is and is not, depending on what you believe. Now, George Washington quite possibly could say if people want to define marriage or a family, they would go to the 9th and the 10th Amendment. You know, the things that aren't expressly delegated in the Constitution are expressly and respectfully to the people, that's you and I, and to the states, the state governors, not to the federal government. You cannot get 325 million people to agree on everything. You look at all the different cultures within the 50 states and U.S. territories. They're all different, similar in some kinds of ways because we're all one nation, but very different in many different kinds of ways. And the boundaries with sex. What do we say is wrong and what is not wrong? What is right and what is not right? Now, there are people in society who have sex with nature. There are people who have sex with their family members. There are people who have sex with inanimate objects. People who have weird fetishes with sex. What do we tell our children, and how do we educate them to tell them that's wrong or that's good or whatnot, or however you as a parent or in society want to do that? If society today, this is one thing that George Washington would say about this, if society today doesn't get a hold of the boundaries in what a family is or what sex is, you will not recognize the family unit. It will be unrecognizable in what it is and what it is not. And people cannot say and tell me, oh, people can love who they want to love and do whatever they want to do. No, they can't. Because if you let people go and do whatever they going to do, you're going to have something so extreme and so crazy that it's going to be normal for people to have sex with animals or normal for people to have sex with nature. Now, beyond that, I don't know what George Washington would say. I know that he would disagree with a lot of things, but I don't know what those things would be. I'll put all my sources in the description below. Thank you for watching this video, and looking forward to the next one.